This is Expedition Texas, the podcast, presented by Crazy Water. Hello and welcome once again to Expedition Texas, the podcast. I'm Bob Malden, the host of this and, of course, Expedition Texas on TV. We have a very special show for you today, one that I'm kind of surprised we were able to get together. Sort of. We'll tell you exactly how that all is pulled together here in just a moment when we introduce our guests to you. But first, I want to tell you, of course, Expedition Texas, the podcast, is presented each and every time by our friends over at Crazy Water, the best thing to ever come out of the ground in Mineral Wells, Texas. Crazy Water, of course, that mineral water that they are so famous for, the famous water company, your presenting sponsor here on Expedition Texas, the podcast. And big thanks to the Kilgore East Texas Oil Museum. They are also a sponsor of the show here. Some big things coming there. We'll tell you all about that here a little bit later on, more about the museum to come. But today I'm very excited about this particular episode because of a few things. The main thing is our guests. The other thing is we're going all the way back and talking about season 1 of Expedition Texas. The first season, we didn't really know what we were doing. We just kind of went out there and did it anyway. And so the first season, and it's also the only season of our show that's available as a DVD set. Which is kind of cool because you can actually watch a lot of the things that we're talking about on this DVD set, which you can get at the store at expeditiontexas.tv. But first, I want to go ahead and get everybody's mics on and ready to go here because this is the part where I get to introduce you to some really special people to me. And the guy who's in studio with us today was a friend long before Expedition Texas started. We worked together in radio. We've done a lot together, but the first season of Expedition Texas was the first thing we really ever went out and traveled and did together. Folks, please welcome Joe Silva to the podcast. Hi, Joe.
Hi. How are you?
Good. We're going to talk in a little bit about how we made a cameraman out of Joe.
Right.
In the first season of the show, but also want to bring on someone who is very, very special to me. As well he should be because he's my son. Jacob Malden is joining us here via, what are we on, Google Meet now here?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and we have him. You're in Austin, and tell us what you're doing in Austin.
Well, I'm about a mile away from Circuit of the Americas. I'm going to be attending the Formula One race this weekend.
Very cool, very cool. So by the time this is released, that race will be long over, and we'll already know the results. But at the time of this recording, he's down here, and this is a big. This is something you've been looking forward to for a couple of years now, right?
Yeah, I've been wanting to go to one for quite a while. They're just there's something you got to save up for. Definitely.
Yeah. So, Joe, last time I guess you saw Jacob was when we went on that expedition. The first year we went and shot, I think, 4 or 5 episodes over the course of a long weekend, and he was 12.
You're right.
And he's not 12 anymore. I don't know if you can tell that. Jacob is now, which we're seeing Jacob here. You're seeing him on your own screen there when Denise switches to him. And another thing, interesting thing I want to point out is that the producer of this podcast, also a producer on Harvey's Festival of Fear, which we produced in this studio as well, is someone that's pretty special to you.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, tell me, how is it that Denise Bell has anything to do with Joe Silva? How is that?
She's my exceptional daughter.
Exceptional daughter, yes. She is highly exceptional, and she is the producer of this podcast. She's the one making everything work behind the scenes, and she's done that for a lot of things with us over the years.
Yes.
And so very excited to have her, and because of her, we now have you in studio.
Right.
And you are a busy man. Jacob's so busy he couldn't even be here in the studio. He's joining us from, it looks like his truck. You're not driving or anything, are you?
Nope.
Okay. I'm parked. Okay, good. Clear that up right away. We want to talk about the first season of Expedition Texas. I think is special and unique because when I say we didn't know what we were doing, we didn't know what we were doing.
No, we didn't.
I came from a radio background. I had been in broadcasting at that point, probably 15 years or so, but it was all radio.
Yeah.
And I had dabbled in, like making some short films and things like that at the time, but nothing like a run and gun TV show. And if I had, it was with me running the camera. But what we were trying to do here was I was going to be in front of the camera, going out and guiding these shoots, these expeditions as we called them.
Right.
And basically the job for me was to find anybody who had a shoulder to pop a camera on and say, "Here, let's go. Can you hold this and point it this way?" And you fit the bill.
I was at the right place at the right time.
I think your business, you were installing satellites at the time. I think it said slowed down enough that you're like, "Yeah, I'll go on some road trips with you. Give me the camera. Show me how to turn it on, and we'll do this."
Right.
And we did.
Yes.
And one of the big trips is actually featured in that first season DVD. We had an episode, and Denise and I were watching it a little bit ago and laughing at some of the fun we had on the road. Jacob was 12-year-old kid on the road with his dad and Joe and shooting Expedition Texas, and he was doing he had like our home video camera doing a behind the scenes episode, and there was some really fun, great stories from that first season on the air, and we're going to kind of dive into those here in just a little bit. But first, we're going to take a little break right now to tell you about the East Texas Oil Museum, and we'll be right back here after that on Expedition Texas, the podcast.
Do you love history? Do you ever wonder about the way things were almost 100 years ago in East Texas? Visit the Kilgore College East Texas Oil Museum to learn about the men and women who lived during the East Texas oil boom of the 1930s. Step back in time and visit Boomtown, USA, the life-size diorama of a town booming in oil. Step inside the general store and visit the shopkeeper. Head to the theater to watch the Great Oil Boom movie. And no visit would be complete without taking a quick journey on the elevator ride to the center of the earth to learn about all of the geology of the East Texas oil field. The East Texas Oil Museum is now open Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. with last entry at 4 p.m. For more information, visit kilgore.edu/oil museum or find us on all the socials.
Well, as you know, we're brought to you by Crazy Water, the famous water company out of Mineral Wells. The waters of Mineral Wells, Texas have been making folks feel good inside and out since 1881. Since, as rumor has it, a crazy lady was hanging out by the well in Mineral Wells, and they started giving her cups of water when they would come draw up water for the day, and she slowly and miraculously got better. And so many other reasons people came from all around. And it wasn't just the crazy stories. It was the people that were actually had actual feeling better and healing because of the water in the ground in Mineral Wells, Texas. It maybe is because of a crazy lady, or maybe it's just the fact that it has all the right minerals and vitamins in it that you need. Crazy Water. Either way, whether you enjoy it in the bottle or right there by going to visit in Mineral Wells, Texas, you're crazy not to try it. Crazy Water. Number 4, my favorite. Get your own based on mineral content, which they lay out for you on the back of the label there. And Crazy Water presents Expedition Texas, the podcast, each and every week, and we thank them so much for being a part of this. And I wanted to get all the business out of the way early so that we could dive in, guys. We haven't had a chance to sit and talk in a really long time, and Jacob, I think the story actually begins with you. I don't know if you remember this or not. It's in the book, Expedition Texas Tales from the Road, where we would go on these hikes. You remember those? Tell me kind of your perspective on the hikes where this kind of the idea was first born.
Well, I mean, the other two brothers were always the adventurous ones. I was the shut-in, but whenever I did go on those, we'd always, go back up in there and just always, go back up in there and find stuff and, just go out looking, go out exploring.
There was a creek that we followed that was there by the house in Tyler, and the creek was what led, if you followed it all the way up, it led to the spillway at Bellwood Lake, and there was one particular time that you did come with us. We decided to make a day of it, and we followed that creek all the way to the spillway at Bellwood Lake, and we found. Remember when we found the abandoned picnic area? There was
like a picnic park.
Yeah, there's an area over on the public side of Bellwood Lake that has very old structures as well. But this was a part that was on the old Bellwood Lake Road that came out of Tyler that had been shut down probably for decades. It was worn out and pretty much gone, and it led right to this little picnic park that we had. There were like little fire pits and picnic tables under like tree branches and leaves, and you had to kind of dig to find it. But on the way back from that trip, we're thinking, the thought was, man, wouldn't it be cool if I like could make a show about places like that, but like take somebody out there that could tell the story of it, but we go find it, the adventure of getting there, and so we got back to the house. All of us were tired and sweaty and covered in mud, and I shared this idea with my wife at the time, and she's like looking at the camera over there, and it's like, we'll do it. Okay, cool. We don't have anything else to do. Let's go do that. So, but I have a picture that I wanted to put in the book, Jacob, but they wouldn't use it because it was too small. It had been taken on a BlackBerry to show you how far back that was, of you at the spillway at Bellwood Lake. And I love that picture because that was the adventure where the idea was born. That was the hike. And so not too long after that, we decided to pack up and go for that first trip. And Jacob took the home video camera, which I think recorded on little mini DVDs, right? It was like the little discs.
Right.
And we had a stack of those, and it would only hold like 15 minutes. And so he can only, it's like, okay, be frugal with this stuff. But we gave him that. So like on the DVD set, on the 10th episode, a lot of it is stuff that Jacob shot at 12 of us going out. And so you get kind of this behind the scenes of what the adventure was like. And we were watching it before this started, and it's a little bit all over the place the way that I put it together back then, but I'd like to kind of start at the beginning, Joe. I think the first episode that we shot together was the Van Zandt County Jail, if I'm not mistaken, atop the Van Zandt County Courthouse. You remember going up and doing that?
Yes.
We were with Sheriff Pat Burnett at the time.
Right.
And we went up there and shot it, and at the time, the show was called Expedition East Texas. Because,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was only going to be an East Texas show.
Right.
It was going to be airing on a local channel. We had the channel already, agreed to take the show, and great guy named John Gaston was the first one that believed in it and let us have some airtime on a Sunday afternoon. On KCEB was the station, and it was exciting because it's like, okay, we got the show. We're going to go really do this thing. And then a network, it was not a big network by any stretch of the imagination, called Legacy TV at the time. I believe they still air the show, but I don't think they're called Legacy TV anymore. But they wanted the show, but they wanted something less regional. And so we had shot the Van Zandt County Jail episode.
Right.
We had taken, we had put the camera on somebody else's shoulder and went and shot the one at Kilo Monument. So we did that for the first episode. And those were both East Texas locations because we were going to just do it in East Texas. And then this network says they want something less regional. And then it's like, okay, so like, what about Texas? And they're like, yeah, Expedition Texas. That has a good ring to it.
Yeah.
Take the East out of it and let's just do Expedition Texas. And so that's how it became Expedition Texas. And the budget had to increase significantly because now
you're traveling.
Yeah, we're traveling all over the place. But and I knew I loved to travel, but it wasn't until we hopped in the car that first time with you guys. And Jacob, I don't even remember how you ended up getting to go. I think maybe it was like a first job type situation for you. I don't know how you ended up getting to go on that, but we were gone. Like, it was a very long weekend. We shot like 4 or 5 episodes that weekend. You remember how you?
Oh yeah.
How I guess you were out of school.
Was this the one out of West Texas?
No, it was summertime. This was the first time we rolled out. And that, Glen Rio is the one you're thinking of where we went out to West Texas, but that was just you and Ryan. But this was the very first trip we went on. This is when we went to, let's think, New Gulf,
Okay, yeah.
Remember New Gulf?
Yes.
I've watched some of these this afternoon while we're getting ready for this. So New Gulf, we went there. We went on to Houston and stayed there. I believe. Let's see. We went on from there. Why am I sitting here trying to remember this stuff?
Yeah.
I have the DVD right here.
I know.
Oil Springs in Nacogdoches. Remember that?
Yes. Then we stayed at the.
Yeah, we stayed at the Fredonia. We met Ab Abernathy there and went out and saw the place where the oil basically bubbles up out of the ground, up through the ground, come a bubbling crude,
right?
And in Oil Springs, and it was in the creek.
I need to move.
Right. Yeah. It's just, you could poke a straw in the ground and make money out there.
Right.
But yeah, and so we went to Oil Springs, so we stayed at the Fredonia. We went there. We went to, let's see, we were in San Antonio, and that, which when we went to visit Father Cussword, remember him? That's what Jacob ended up calling him, Father Cussword, who was who we learned a lot by going to visit him at Mission San Juan Capistrano. We shot a lot at the hotel in San Antonio because it was so nice.
Yeah.
It was when I first discovered my favorite app. I can't give them a plug unless they're a sponsor, so we won't talk about them. But my favorite app for booking hotel rooms, and like it's a hit or miss, and that one was a definite hit. Like we were downtown San Antonio in a parking garage, and I was able to go out and explore the Riverwalk early in the morning. And if you stepped over where people had vomited the night before, it was really nice. Avoided those areas. Early in the morning is a different scene on the Riverwalk, I tell you what. So, Joe, do you have any memories from that first season on the road doing Expedition Texas, other than it was freaking hot?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it was extremely hot.
Yeah. One that you didn't bring up was the one locally, the Athens, the monkey cages.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think Jacob went with us on that one, but that was one of the early ones where I'm like, here, put the camera on your shoulder, let's go.
Yes.
And we explored the woods forever.
Yes, it took us forever to find it.
And it was one of the ones where we learned a lot of lessons that first season.
Yes.
First of all, always go with someone who knows where you're headed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes.
Learn that from the monkey cage situation. And the other one is, just plan a little bit.
Exactly.
Always have a guide. But like the one thing we learned from that one was like, it was a rumor, that we kind of substantiated because we were able to find the owner of the property. He actually officed in Tyler, not far from where we're sitting right now. So I had him sign written permission to let us go on the property, but we went on the property, and he basically had bought it sight unseen. He didn't even know what all was on the property. And so we went on the property sight unseen with a rumor that there was this massive monkey cage and that like these people had a zoo and their graves are in there somewhere. We actually did have a guide.
We did.
Yeah, Randy from the paper there, right?
Yes.
And but he couldn't. He only took us to the graves. I don't know if he wasn't feeling good that day or what. He only took us to the graves.
Yeah, because he ended up leaving.
Yeah, he left, and we had to search the rest of the thing by ourselves.
Yeah.
And he didn't even know for sure if the monkey cages were really there.
Right.
And so we're out there, and we're thinking, well, so maybe they're here, maybe they're not.
And we're just walking through the woods trying to find them for hours.
Yes. And so we have tons of footage of that trip. Us walking through the woods, me talking to the camera, and trying to tell some sort of a story with this thing. A lot of it was done voiceover and overdubs later on, but yeah. So eventually, though, we take the right path, and we found them, and they really were there. But it took hours of walking through the woods, and we're so tired, and and it's one thing for me to go do it, but then I'm like, okay, Joe, you go up there and shoot back this way, and so Joe's going first, and he's going and clearing out all the snakes on us,
Right.
And then so that was I guess probably the second time we'd gone out,
probably
because we did the jail thing first, which is a pretty subdued. Compared to the hiking through the woods looking for what might be there and what might not be.
All right.
But yeah, then we take off. So we I think it was like an old Nissan Altima that we had at the time, and loaded all the stuff in the back of it. And Jacob's kind of shooting video as we go. There was something that happened though, and I think it was on the road in Houston, where when we were doing the behind the scenes episode, and I think he knows where I'm going with this. He's already starting to crack a smile. There was something that happened on the road, and we had an interview with Jacob trying to tell about it, and he got so tickled in that interview that he couldn't even finish talking. And it was something you did, Joe. What was it, Jacob? Do you remember?
Well, 12 years later, they're finally going to get an answer to that story.
Okay, yeah, I would love to know.
So what had happened, from what I remember, what had happened was we were driving in Houston, and you know how excellent the people in Houston drive.
Well, they might be watching this, so they drive wonderfully, Jacob. So
they do.
Hi, Houston.
They do.
Yes.
Excellent. Houston's good. But anyways, we got cut off by somebody.
Yes.
And somebody very dangerously cut us off, didn't know we were there, cut us off.
Yeah.
And so, we're sitting over there kind of grumbling at them, and Joe pulls out his phone, acts like he's going to take a picture of their license plate, and that cracked me up for some reason. And that had me in a heap. I don't know
you
why,
were.
but it was.
Well, 12-year-old sense of humor and the phone taking a picture. Right. But then later on, I believe we actually talked to Joe about that, and that wasn't what you were trying to do at all, was it? And Joe's like, that was 12 years ago, Bob. Why are you asking me this question? You didn't tell me we were talking about stuff that happened 12 years ago.
Do you remember that one time you pulled out your phone 12 years ago?
Right, exactly. What were you trying to do? And it was in Houston. We know that much. Yeah. No, but Jacob remembers it because he could barely get through the story without laughing about it so hard. But I think we actually figured out that you were just pulling out your phone to text Ashley or something.
Right. It looked like I was going to take a picture.
Yeah, and he got so cracked up about that. But so let's talk about some of the places, though, that we went on that trip. And I want to start, one of the things that the show has always, since the beginning, tried to do is we wanted to take the camera places that people can't usually go. Right. And we want to do it, obviously, with permission. We're not doing urban exploration or, traipsing off into someone's property without getting permission, like we did when we went off to the Bellwood Lake. But with the show, we wanted to be legit about it, and we wanted to go explore these places and take the cameras into places that people couldn't go themselves. And so some of the places that we went that first season definitely kind of epitomized that. And I think the biggest and most epic of all, and I still tell stories about this to this day, is New Gulf. And New Gulf was this company town, because back then, if a company came in and had a mining operation, which is what they had there, or a sulfur operation, they would mine the sulfur and bring it there to be purified or whatever it is they did to it there. There'd be a town built up around it, and New Gulf was like this little town that was built up around this mining operation where they got all this sulfur out of the ground. And we went there with a guy, and I remember because it was a hard sell the first season trying to get anybody to understand what it was we were trying to do with Expedition Texas.
Well, you're still learning too at the same time, so it's hard for you to sell it.
It's hard to explain. I want to come look at your abandoned, falling down building and tell the story of it.
Right.
Because when I called the guy, he was like, there's nothing there. And I'm like, but I've seen pictures of what's left there. And he's like, yeah, but nobody goes out there anymore. I'm like, I know. That's why we want to go. And so they had a Wharton County Museum there, and he was like, well, I'll show you the museum. I'm like, okay, that's fine, but I also want to go out to the place.
Site,
And at the time, I'm sure that the pictures that were posted online were people who snuck out there that weren't supposed to be there. But, we went with permission of the property owners at the time and went out there with him. And that's when it clicked for him. And it really clicked for us because he worked out there.
Right.
And that is where he made his living and made his life. He was like, I think it might have been in accounting or HR or something like that. But he knew the place, the entire place, so well. And that's a pretty cool thing. Kind of talk about your memories of going through the new Gulf sulfur operation.
Yeah, besides the stacks, checking out the stacks, I guess they're called the smoke stacks, I guess.
Yeah.
They
had never been used.
Yeah. and the buildings, and some of the stuff was still there. That's history right there.
It was like they just got up and left work one day and said, okay, I'll be back tomorrow, but they didn't come back.
Right. We found out that they had a school, for everybody's kids that worked, the parents' kids that worked there, and even had a bus stop.
Yeah.
It was a functional town.
Yeah. And I think probably one of my favorite things about it was the lab. When we went into the lab, there were still samples of sulfur and still chemicals in the refrigerators that hadn't been turned on in decades. Jacob, do you remember anything about New Gulf?
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was that lab that you were talking about. There was like just a thin layer of sulfur over everything. Mm-hmm. I may be wrong. I may be thinking of something totally different.
I believe so. Yeah.
You could kind of swipe your finger on it, and it was just white powder like chalk.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that was one thing I very much remember in the smokestacks too.
Yeah.
Just going up in there and looking all the way up.
A couple of things about those. I don't know if you guys remember this, but when we were walking through one of the rooms, he picks up this item that looks like the lid to a garbage can, like a plastic garbage can lid, and he picks it up by the handle on top. And I had like a plug on one side of it. And he says, you know what this is? You know where I'm going with this? He picks that thing and says, you know what this is? And I said, no. And he says, hard drive.
Oh, yeah.
It was as big around as like a trash can lid and in a plastic container. And he said, hard drive, 20 megs.
Yeah.
You had to take it down to the bank and dump it at the end of the day, each and every day on the mainframe computer. And that's how they did all of their spreadsheets and everything they had to do for the day. But a day's work at one business would fill it up. Wow. And they had to go dump it at the end of every day. That plus, you talked about the sulfur that was in there. One thing that I thought was fascinating about New Gulf was the computers. Because, they quit functioning as a business in the 80s. So you had the desktops, which were workstations connected to a larger computer somewhere else, but all those workstations that were still in various rooms around there.
Yeah.
The vault where they were still, and he pulled them out for us, and we looked at the plans for so many of the machines that were used at that site. It was so cool and so fascinating to see. And I learned really quickly with that one, this is the kind of stuff we want to feature on this show. I mean, we had done some cool things. I mean, the jail was cool, and Kilo Monument was awesome, and the hiking through the woods made for an entertaining episode, watching us walk around basically trying to figure out what we're doing. But that one for me was the one that told me this is what we need to be doing,
right? Because
it's what the show was really about, and I've tried to do as well or better than that one every time we go out. And sometimes we hit the mark and sometimes we don't. But the fact that one had so much still there. Mm-hmm. And anytime you can go into a place like that and it looks like they just turned the lights off and went home one day and never came back, it's like a time capsule.
Right.
And we're getting to crack the door open for the first time and go in there and see that. One thing we found out on the road too, and there's a little blip about this on the behind the scenes video. I think you shot this, Jacob. I didn't know the camera was rolling at the time, but some of these long road trips, the bathroom breaks, and so we were on some long road, and it was many, many miles, and Jacob, I guess, had the camera rolling, and I needed a bathroom break, so I ran back under the bridge.
I knew that was going to come up.
You remember that, Jacob? You remember having to, I mean, just anytime, it's just planning. That's like the thing. It's like planning. And, I was talking to Denise about producing some episodes for us of this upcoming season, and I'm like, It's the planning. That's mainly what the producer does on that, because I was not always the best about the planning. I could get us a good deal on hotels, though.
Right.
But let's see. Moving on from there, we went on down the road, and this is where we get into, I believe it was San Antonio, where we went from Houston to San Antonio, and we did the story on Mission San Juan Capistrano.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And that's another thing about the show. It's like everybody has been to the Alamo. If you've been to San Antonio, I mean, if you're a real Texan, you've been to the Alamo, right? Mm-hmm. And you'll remember it.
Yes.
So we went on the road and went to the Mission San Juan Capistrano, because like I said, it's off the beaten path. It's kind of lost history. There was construction started on it in the 1700s, and it was not completed. So there's part of this big mission out there that was incomplete. You remember the ruins of Mission San Juan Capistrano?
Right. Yeah.
And our guide there they had a small mission that was there, and they would have mass there. And I don't know where where they would meet. We didn't go into that part of it. But remember, we went into his
Was this living quarters?
I guess so, yeah. And he made the joke. This was not our joke. He called it the oldest bachelor pad in Texas.
Right.
Because it had been built in the 1700s. Great joke, by the way.
Yeah.
And because he was the priest. And, so oldest bachelor pad in Texas. And I learned something that day that that I didn't know about priests, that they do have beer on hand, because we were offered one. And that they can cuss a little bit, probably not too much.
A lot.
As long as you do your Hail Marys, right?
Do you remember him telling the story about the people dropping off the dog, Jacob? That's what he was. That's what he was upset about when he was telling us the story, because they were kind of out in the country and people were dumping dogs out there.
Oh yeah.
And that's where
a ton of dogs out there.
Yeah, and that's where the name calling and the name Father Cussword came from. Is he because Jacob named him that, and he didn't know this, but yeah, Jacob came up with that name for him because he was telling the story about people dumping their dogs out, like getting rid of dogs out there by their place, and I guess they thought that they would just take them in and minister to them like they did the people.
All right.
I mean, that makes sense, right?
Save a dog.
Yeah.
This is crazy good water.
You like it?
Yes.
Good. I like it too.
Yeah.
Crazy Water Mineral Wells, our sponsor here, title sponsor on the show. Jacob, I'm telling you, you need to go to HEB since you're in Austin. That's where they have them there. I think Kroger
That's
too.
my next stop.
Is it good? Yeah. You need the big ones though. That's because we got the small ones so they would fit in people's hands better on the set. Last time we had them, they'll think they're like a jug of water.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I told Carol at Crazy Water we needed some of the smaller ones. Like they have these at the Crazy Water bar in Mineral Wells, and we told her that we needed to have the smaller ones because I feel like people are going to drop them, and then you'd break a toe or something.
Right.
Yeah. And so, yeah, but they will probably only have the large ones at HEB, Jacob.
Alrighty.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's all right. That's all right. That's a good thought. Gives me another chance to plug the sponsor there,
There you go.
Let's see. Where did we go from there? San Antonio. We did the Mission San Juan Capistrano, but that's not all. We didn't just go two places. We went to Mission San Juan Capistrano. We also, did you go do Stone Point with me, the original one? We went into the blacksmith shop, or was that somebody else? That was outside of Canton.
Right.
Was
Yeah,
that-
I don't think I made that one.
Okay. That wasn't the same day we did the sheriff's.
Ooh, it might have been.
It was like a blacksmith shop out in the middle of a field.
Yes.
And there was a buzzard in there.
Right. Yes.
Okay, so that was you.
that
So
was me.
it's hard to remember who did these because some of these we've gone back to. Like we did a 10th episode or 10th anniversary season 2 years ago when it was the 10th anniversary of the show, and we went back to some of the places we went in the first season. So we went back to New Gulf, but the guy that was the guide this time could not get us into the buildings, so we just went to like the school.
Okay.
We got ran off. They thought we were terrorists, and we went to we went to the museum again, did a new interview, but basically we just showed a lot of footage from the first time and then showed what it looked like now, which we couldn't show the buildings, which was the whole idea.
Right.
So that one was kind of a fail. But we went back to Stone Point, saw that place. We didn't go to the jail, didn't do that because, I mean, it's basically storage up there. It was that when we went there before. So we went back to some of the places that we visited. We did not go to Mission San Juan Capistrano, and part of the reason is that one didn't air originally in the first season. It aired in like season 3, I think, and it's not on the DVD with Father Cussword because we couldn't air it the first season because, again, we were new, we were still learning, and the camera was switched to the wrong setting for doing an HD TV show.
Oh.
We weren't in HD at that time, but instead of the 16:9, widescreen format,
it was
we had hit a button
4:3
on the camera and it changed it to 4:3, and so I didn't use it for the longest time, but I was like so good and I wanted to use it somehow, so I ended up putting like a letterbox thing on it and used it in I think the 3rd season or whatever. But do y'all remember where we went after that? We did New Gulf. We did. I mean, we went a bunch of places. We did a whole season on this thing, right?
Was that the weekend also that we did the Chainsaw Massacre?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Of course. Because that was the first time y'all appeared on the show because it was episode 4. I wanted to watch that one before we got started. Yes, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We swung back up to Austin. We did revisit that during the 10th anniversary season. So, yes, the filming locations for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original 1974 Tobe Hooper film, which celebrates 50, is it 50 or 60 years? Math is not my thing. Anyway.
Yeah, I think it was 70s.
So 50 years that thing has been around. But anyway, we went there we met Tim Harden, who was like Texas Chainsaw Massacre expert.
Yes.
Remember him?
Uh-huh.
And he took us to Quick Hill, which was where the original house was located. The road was mostly still there. And we went up the hill and saw where things happened. The big scene where Leatherface is swinging the chainsaw around at the end. And what's crazy is you would think that that's right down the hill from the gas station or right up the hill from the gas station. But the gas station is actually in Bastrop. The house was in Round Rock. The gas station was in Bastrop, a good drive away. And then we visited both of those places, and then we went to the cemetery, which I went to that cemetery about a week ago. The cemetery is called, now I'm going to forget it. Oh boy, it's gone. It has totally slipped my mind. Anyway, the cemetery is in Leander. And I went and did a Spotlight City story on Leander, and I went right to the spot where you guys are standing at the end of the episode. Jacob's holding the microphone like he was the audio guy.
Right.
We wore clip-on mics, but we needed a job for Jacob so he could be on camera. So he was holding a microphone on a pole. It wasn't active. It wasn't what we really did, but we needed a job for Jacob. And then we had you holding the camera, and I used the other camera and got a shot of you guys as I got out and looked at where the spot was in the cemetery, and then jumped in the car and drove off with you guys standing there and you saying, "Do you think you'll come back?"
Right.
and then Jacob makes a face and it fades to black. So that was kind of a fun way to end. That ended up being like our Halloween episode that year. Right. You remember doing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Oh yeah, and because they had turned the house. I think they had torn it down or something now because they moved it, but before then, whenever we went, they turned it into a restaurant.
Yeah, no, when we went, it was a restaurant. They had moved the house. I guess they cut it in half. Yeah, it was in Kingsland, Texas, and was a restaurant. And at that time, when we went back a couple of years ago, it's still a restaurant and a very good restaurant. And so we ate in the room where all the chicken feathers were on the ground. In the movie.
I hope they cleaned them up by then.
They did, yes. It was much cleaner, much nicer. There were no human bones about. It was very nice. So we did. We actually went to the house, too. I forgot about that. We went totally, which Kingsland is no short trip either.
No.
They drug that house a long ways.
Yes.
But we had a chance to go, and we did go to Bastrop and drive by the gas station. But since then,
Well, speaking of, earlier you're talking about, bathroom break. Well, we had to take one there too.
did we?
Yeah, we did.
Where did we go? Out behind the place?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I forgot about that. But we, so there now,
like a museum
somebody
now.
came and opened up, basically put a memorabilia shop in there, and they also serve barbecue there, which is fantastic because that's what they did in the movie. And they have a replica, or not replica, it is that model van, that color of the van that they drove in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, out behind the place. And you can stay on the property in these tiny house rooms that are back there. And so you can actually like camp out at the gas station. They call it the Texas gas station. They can't use as much of the chainsaw imagery anymore to promote it because of whoever owns the film now is like, I don't think you can do that.
Right.
Whatever. I mean, it is the location. But yeah, so that place is actually preserved. The house is preserved. The only sad thing about it, and we knew this was happening, it was happening when we were there 12 years ago. But Quick Hill in Round Rock was an original farm to market road that was the only road in the area at the time. And then, remember, we had to enter a gate to get up that road. But
Yeah.
you could, at that time, you could still see the stripes in the road. And there was grass
it was
coming up
faded,
the road.
but you still
could
see it.
tell that it was a farm to market road at one point. A 2-lane divided, by a line road. And you could clearly see your way to the top of it. But there was nearby construction, like, obviously the massive loop that they just chopped off the end of the hill. That's where the loop went in. And all that infrastructure that was involved in that, but the lot where the house was still there. There were still like pipes sticking out of the ground where the hot water heater was, and different things like that. So there were remnants and things there where you could see where the house was.
Yeah, because I remember when we was there, he was talking about the construction was going to take some of that hill away.
Well, it did. When we went back, we went up. We had Tim Harden again.
Okay.
We met up with Tim again 10 years later and went up that hill. It was hard to even find the road now. There were patches, like little areas, a couple feet here and there, where you could still see what looked like asphalt on the ground, but it was completely grown over. Weren't even really sure we were on the right path. Tim knew we were on the right path. But we went up, and as you get further up the hill, there's this big fence, construction fence, where they've almost cut off part of the road. At the top of it, the road is gone, and you cannot get onto the lot where, in fact, the lot where the house was is gone. They've built apartments right there. They're building more right there, and I doubt very seriously that Quick Hill and that little bit of the farm to market road that's there will be there much longer, because that is all in development now.
Right.
I mean, massive amounts of development. I mean, it's valuable property.
Yeah.
To be anywhere near, I mean, it's right off of I-35. It's immediately off of that loop now, which I can't remember which loop that is. I think it's whatever it is. There's a big loop that is in Round Rock that comes off of I-35 right there, and it's just huge. You just went right through there, Jacob. You could have probably swung by and saw it.
Oh boy, I went through Bastrop too.
Oh, you
Seen
did?
the gas station.
Did you go
Yeah.
get some
You did?
barbecue?
No, not this time. I didn't get that close to it. I was just kind of in the edge of it.
Did you see the gas station, though?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if it'd be on that route you were on or not. I talked to Jacob earlier today when he was on his way, and I didn't. I knew you kind of went the way we've been a few times when we go down that direction, but I didn't know if you had passed the gas station or not. It'd be
Yeah,
cool
I
if
may
you
have
did.
to try and go that way whenever I leave.
Yeah. Well, you can go by there. Maybe get you some chainsaw stuff while you're
There you go.
in there. Go by the gas station
Yeah.
if it's open. Get you some barbecue. The barbecue is really good,
Yeah.
by the way.
Is
So
it?
it's definitely worth the trip if they're still doing it.
Cool.
But yeah, I love that place, and they host a horror themed conference each year. The people that own the Texas gas station run that conference each year, and it's really awesome. Okay, I've got a call for a bogey here. Denise, where are we in time? How long have we been doing this? Do we know how long we've been going? The computer should tell you.
This one was about 38, and
So-
I think the last one was maybe about 10, 15.
Oh, okay, so we're doing good on time.
Yeah.
We're right in there. That was Denise, by the way, Joe's daughter. That's Denise Bell, who is Joe's daughter, who has been she didn't work for me till after you did, Joe.
Right.
It's like, well, if I can't have Joe, I'm just going to have Denise working for me. Then.
There you go.
And we did a few other things. The one thing that we did that wasn't season 1 is we went, I think it was season 3, and filmed at the Baker Hotel.
Yes.
And that ended up being 2 episodes. But to me, it did not have, for some reason, it just did, that episode, even though it was pretty massive and awesome, just didn't have, I don't know if we were tired or what the deal was. It didn't have the quality of the first episode, first season stuff.
So I guess the question is, which Baker Hotel? One in Mineral Wells?
Oh, you
or
went to
the one in
Colorado City.
Colorado City.
Okay. So, Jacob, were you at the Baker Hotel in Colorado City? Because he did both.
I think I was at the one at Colorado
Yes,
City.
you
I
were.
think.
I'm totally forgetting 2 episodes. That Jacob, and it's in the bloopers on there, where our guide kept saying, "You're going to have to buy him a shake or something." This is ridiculous because there's a whole sequence in that it happened when we were at Kingsland. It happened when we were on the side of the mountain. It happened when there were so many times on that. And then I'm like, "Is Jacob in your shot? Is Jacob in your shot? Is Jacob in your shot?" Like I was at, and it's like I edited those all together for that because I forgot all about that West Texas run. You're right. That part of West Texas was we went out there to see the Indian oven, which was where the tribes would have they cooked inside this rock that had like a cave, and they cooked in there, and it had like a natural smokestack out the back that just had been carved by water or whatever over time. That's where we were walking out through the field, and hit the old cowboy that led us out there. So watch out for rattlesnakes.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay. And there's a great shot in the bloopers of you trying to film us walking, and Jacob gets in the shot, but he kind of ducks, like he's trying to get out of the shot, but not really. He's like he kind of backs up a little bit, but then we move, and so you keep the shot on him, and he's like trying to duck and go backwards. It was almost like camera limbo. And so and then but then we're walking along, and apparently there's these plants in that part of Texas where they grow these seed pods, and at this point in the summer the seed pods were dried out, and so when you bump up against the plant, it rattles and sounds just like a rattlesnake. And so here we are, watch out for rattlesnakes, and I'm walking along, and I hear that, and I'm jumping nearly 3 feet in the air. Yeah, and so I think that ended up in the show. We also went out to the Seven Wells, which was the springs underground and that was at the bottom of a lake. But there were these 7 wells, and they were like these grinding holes that Native Americans had carved into the ground before the lake came in, and then the lake was dry again, so we were able to go out and see those. That's where she kept saying that Jacob deserved a milkshake, because I kept saying make sure he's out of the shot, make sure he's out of the shot. So we had him stuffed in a cave somewhere out there so he wouldn't be in the shot. And then the Baker Hotel in Colorado City was the first place we went with her. Her name was Amy. Yeah. And this is where I learned, and that was a quickly changed. I wore cowboy boots on that trip. Bad idea. Bad idea.
Especially when you climb to the roof. Yes,
and so we go out on the roof, and there's this rickety ladder that's leaned up on the top part of the fire escape of this very abandoned building.
Very.
And leaned up atop the building on the fire escape, and it's just kind of leaning there, and the top of it's sort of hanging off on the top of the building and rattling and all this.
I'm still not sure if it was even secure.
It wasn't. It was just sitting kind of leaning against the bottom rail, and Joe's like, I'm out. And so Joe did not come out the window onto the fire escape. I don't blame you.
All right.
We were not insured. And so Joe stayed, very wise. His wife is in there listening right now. He was very wise and stayed off of the scary fire escape, if you can hear me in there. And so he didn't come out there with us, and I went up, but she did. And I had to keep up with her.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
she climbed the thing like it was nobody's business, and I'm going up it like, oh. And so I get up to the top of the thing, I reach over the side of the building, and Joe hands the camera up out of the window, and that's how we got the footage from the top of it. So like I held it when she was talking, had her hold the camera when I was talking, and then coming back down, I gave Joe the camera to film me coming down the ladder, and then just reversed it for the opening part where I'm going up. I reversed the footage so it looks like I'm climbing, but if you look very carefully in the background, there's some birds flying backwards.
No,
so
I'd like to watch that.
yeah, it's on DVD. Yeah, you can watch it anytime. Yeah, there's the backwards flying birds. That's how you can tell that scene was reversed. Plus, my shirt kind of does this weird like backwards flip up thing with the wind too. Yeah, but the Colorado City Baker Hotel, that was in the first season, so we did all of those too. Do you remember that Indian oven, Jacob, up on the mountain with the big cowboy fella?
Yeah, I do remember that. I may be remembering something different, but I think I believe I do remember, because there was there was like there was like little spots where like there was just puddles of water, and there was like filled with snakes.
Yes, that was at the Seven Wells. Because there were all those natural wells in the ground. That's what formed the lake. But then when the lake receded, it like receded back into this, and then like it was just like there were like these holes, and they were just full of snakes. Remember the snakes all down in there? We got a good shot of them that ended up in the show. But yeah, and I'm like, are any of them up here? You know, and trying to watch out. But then Amy knew all about those. I think we lost Jacob. She knew all about those. He might can join again. If not, that's okay. She knew all about those grinding holes that you could dig them out, and that was where they would grind up like corn for their flour and things like that.
Right.
In there. So
yeah, she's very knowledgeable.
She was extremely, and she's still out that way somewhere. We were going to come back and we were going to do a story out there at some point. It might have been for that 10th anniversary season. We just couldn't line it up. Right. We were going to go out there and revisit those three places. Joe, I still have that camera.
Really?
That and I kept it because we went HD the second season, and so that camera was obsolete as far as the show is concerned. But there was just something about the way that we shot with it and we rigged it up that it meant a lot to me to keep it, and so I still have it. It's up, and I'll pull it out later to show you. It's in storage in the studio control room in there, and it's that. And you'll just have to put it in your hands again. It'll probably bring back even more memories. We have to do this again,
right?
But I guess we have lost Jacob for good. I don't think he's coming back, but.
Backing up towards the Baker Hotel when you was climbing up on the roof. Yeah. Do you remember what you told me?
I do not.
No matter what happens.
Oh yeah.
Keep it rolling.
I did. And that's been the rule on the show ever since.
Yeah.
It's always been the rule. Like if something happens to me, get the shot first.
Yes. Then call 911.
And then call 911.
All right.
Yeah. We'll worry about the ambulances later. Let's get the shot and
And that's dedication.
I mean, if it's salvageable and we can make a show out of it, I mean, come on. Wouldn't that be ratings? The host that would be the season finale. Be the series finale.
Right.
Well, folks, we hope you've enjoyed Expedition Texas for the last 12 years, but the host is dead now and can't continue, so we hope you enjoy this final episode called Bob Goes Splat. But, yeah, there's been a couple of times. That was one of the first times I was worried about going splat.
Yes.
There's been other times that we go, like, walking out across the floor and we hear it crumbling underneath us. And you've missed a lot of fun, Joe. I mean, we had a lot of fun that first season.
We did.
I mean, it was work. I think you would agree, right?
I had fun.
The pay's a little better these days too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's improved
Yeah.
slightly, not much, but the pay's a little better. But yeah, it would be so fun to go on another adventure sometime. If you're ever down with it, we should just head out and go.
Yeah.
You know, I won't make you shoot anything. You can just come along for the ride.
Oh, okay.
I
I'll
mean,
be glad to
it'd
shoot.
Be
yeah.
fun. Be fun.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Get some practice of getting the headshots and
Yeah.
you know.
yeah.
I mean, since then I critique television. You know.
Yeah.
You missed
It's like-
Tom
yeah.
Florida's head.
Right. Well, you have the inside knowledge now, right?
Right.
And but yeah, and that's the cool thing is like that season meant so much to me, and I love the fact that it's preserved and people can get a DVD and watch it still. It was originally on the YouTube channel, but we changed up how. Back then, we would put the shows on the YouTube channel as the segments that we would send TV stations, and it was a mess. You'd start watching one and you couldn't finish it because you couldn't find the other three segments, know. And so we took that down and changed up how the shows are now on as full episodes. But I think the oldest season on there is season 7. And so that's like the first 6 are just like they're. Well, I know where they are, but
Right.
nobody else can watch them. But the first season though is on this DVD set, which we still have. I think we have like 8 in stock still, unless you want one.
No.
Oops, I just dropped that one. So 7. We have 7 in stock now, unless you want one, and then it'll be 6.
Oh, okay.
That one might be salvageable. I'm not sure. All right. Well, I hate that Jacob had to cut out early. I think he knocked his phone off of his steering wheel in his truck, and I think he lost the connection when he did. So, we're gonna. He's more excited about the race tomorrow anyway. So he's going to be going to see that. But it's cool to have you guys in here, and the stories from. It's a long time ago, and the only reason I remember them so well is just because I get to be reminded of them all the time when I see them,
right?
And when I pass these places. And has that happened to you as you drive around? I know you travel a lot for your work,
right?
Where you'll see something that we've been through, and like we went there.
Right? Yeah, I have.
What are some? Have you seen? Is there anything that you've seen of our travels lately?
Well, in Galveston,
Yeah,
the beer company.
Falstaff.
Yes,
that was one of those early episodes. Was Jacob on that one with us?
I don't think so.
It was that the first. That might have been that first trip, though.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe it wasn't, but I know it was a first season episode. But the Falstaff Brewery, and a little cool nugget for you here. Behind you is a shelf, and those of you who watch the video can see this, but if not, you've seen it in past episodes. There's a shelf where we have some Falstaff commemorative cans that came out in 1974 or 1976. They were sesquicentennial commemorative cans that came out of that Falstaff Brewery that we went to in Galveston.
Okay.
We went back there for the revisited as well, but the Falstaff cans there came out of that brewery. They were my grandfather's. He had a collection of a few random things, and those commemorative cans still had the beer in them.
Wow.
They'd never been opened since 1976, and so and then there are other Falstaff bottles up there that are imprinted with Falstaff bottles that are Falstaff logo that we found in the trash pile at the Chicken Ranch in LaGrange.
Oh, wow.
The the Chicken Ranch,
yes.
right? You probably don't know the Chicken Ranch, but you know about it, right? But yeah, so those were
Watch
in
listening.
those were in the trash pile at the Chicken Ranch in LaGrange. So
Wow.
a couple of Falstaff, things to remember up there.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that might have been, if it wasn't the same trip, it was one shortly after
Right.
that we went and toured that Falstaff Brewery. We went back there, and they are like totally rebuilding the place.
Wow.
They have replaced a lot of the bones of it, like the rotted steel structures that were throughout it. They're remember how the floors didn't quite, from the old part and the new part, didn't quite match up?
Right.
They're fixing all of that, and it's going to be, at some point when they get it finished, it's a massive project, a luxury like hotel.
Okay.
Where there's going to be rooms where you still have like the beams through them and all this. They filled in, remember the massive holes in the floor where the big brew kettles were? They
Right.
filled all that in. There's going to be very little of it that looks like a brewery, but they've dedicated a part of the back of it to where they're going to actually have a brewery in there that is doing like a local craft beer, sort of akin to like the original formula for the Galveston brewery that was there in the 1800s.
Okay.
So that it's going to serve that purpose still a little bit. The original area up front where they had all the fermenting kettles that had been stolen before we got there because they
Right.
were copper. That area has now become air-conditioned indoor self-storage. So yeah, and it's nice and AC and
Right.
multiple floors of storage now. And they've turned the warehouse area into parking for the folks that go covered parking, indoor parking for people that go on cruises, which the cruise ships dock right over there by it.
Right.
So another place that we forgot to talk about was that Galveston Brewery. Very cool place.
Yes.
Yeah. Lots of fun, lots of adventures that this guy and I had now 12 years ago on the road in the season that kind of gave birth to everything that is Expedition Texas now. And somebody I really, really enjoyed spending time on the road with.
No, I enjoyed spending time with you as well. We had fun, and I think about it all the time.
Yeah, and it's great to kind of reminisce. And sorry we lost Jacob here because he was part of all that in that first season. So it's fun to get to have my kid on the road, but have him around somebody that I thought so much of too.
Right.
Have him be around you, and y'all kind of became buds on that trip as well.
Exactly. And one show that y'all did, and this is kind of real close to home. I was hoping Jacob would still be on with this, but one episode I remember is what y'all did was like a bridge in your grandfather's backyard or something like that.
That was the first season, and it was that same season, one of the first episodes where we went out to which on this side behind me is his models that he built of his home at Cuthand that he showed us in that episode. So there's little things around on the set that are all part of the show, and that's why they're here in the background on the set for the podcast. But yeah, that was something, and that was in Cuthand near where he lived in Bogota. He's passed since then, and when he did, I was able to that was my thing that I got from him was that curio that had the original Malden homestead in Cuthand, his model of it that he made there, and so many stories that we were told down through the years growing up around him. That was a first season episode, but it all took place at that that area of Texas, that area in Red River County called Cuthand.
Okay.
So yeah, just lots of fun memories, Joe, just connected to not only like our time on the road, but just like family gets kind of woven into that, doesn't it? I mean, like
it does.
Me and my kid, and now your daughter Denise is helping me on the show, and so the next generation maybe will take this thing and run with it,
Exactly.
at some point.
Yes.
I'm not ready to relinquish just yet.
There you go.
I have a lot more I want to see. We've got some cool places in this current season of Expedition Texas that we haven't gotten to go yet. It was like we had it planned and then somebody got sick or whatever, and we couldn't finish, and so we'll go again the next time. And there's still lots of cool places that we want to go.
Yeah.
You know of any? You see anything good while you've been out there on the road?
It's been a while, but I used to text you all the time and say, hey, you know, place over here.
There's probably some of them that we've gone to because it's like, if you're out there though, and you've got a suggestion, we've got a place on the website where we want people to tell us. Of course, people send us messages on Facebook all the time about places we should go visit. People will comment on other episodes. Well, if you like that, you're going to love this, and and so that's really how we get a lot of the stories. Is just
that's good.
You got the direct line,
right?
But everybody else just kind of goes in and will comment and tell us where to go check them out, and we love getting stories that way because we know that's what you want to see.
Right.
That's always good when you can make sure that it's what folks want to see. So
that's like I know like one place on Coke, Texas. There's just a building there. Kind of makes you wonder what building was that.
Yeah, one building. It was everything. It was the drugstore, the grocery store, the blacksmith shop, and
clothing store.
It was everything. But it was. And we could probably sit here and talk through all these different stories all day long, and we do every week. So we're going to have to say goodbye for now. But Joe, thank you for taking taking time. I know it's not easy to make the trip into town and to come join us in the studio. And you got a lot going on these days, but thank you for taking a few minutes to come and reminisce, man.
Well, I appreciate it, and I really enjoyed it. And we talked about a lot, but we still barely touched bases on that full first season.
Yeah, I know. There's so much to it. But you can get the first season on DVD. There's a DVD set. I believe it's 4 DVDs, a couple episodes on each one. And you can get that at expeditiontexas.tv by just clicking store there. I believe that's how you get that. And you can get that DVD, and we will deliver it right to you. However many we have left now, minus the one that I dropped. I won't try to send that one to you. And then of course the book Expedition Texas Tales from the Road is available wherever you get your books. But if you want the personalized copy where I'll sign it for you and sign it to you, you can get that also in the store at expeditiontexas.tv. So for Joe Silva, Jacob Malden, who joined us by video call today, my name is Bob Malden. Thanks to Crazy Water, our great sponsor, for bringing you this podcast each and every week. Also sponsoring the show is the East Texas Oil Museum at Kilgore College. Thanks to Olivia and everyone out there for helping out. And it's just been a great time. Looking forward to visiting with you next week, and we'll see you next time right here on Expedition Texas, the podcast. Bye, everybody.